Chapter 4:1 Soils and Moringa Nutrients. Soil is composed of inorganic material, organic matter, air, water, and living organisms. Inorganic material in the soil is from the weathering of parent rock or parent material. An essential difference between fertile soil and a mass of rock fragments is the organic content of the soil. Organic matter comes from decaying plant and animal life, animal excretion, and other living organisms. Organic matter improves water and nutrient holding capacity, aeration, granulation, and supports bacterial life and other soil organisms that make nutrients available to moringa. Bacteria and fungi live in the soil and exist mainly on plant and animal residues. Most are beneficial by helping to break down complex organic compounds into simpler chemicals that higher plants can use. Some bacteria and fungi in the soil may be harmful as plant disease causing organisms. We will cover more soil types to grow moringa based on your region in Chapter 7, Regions and Zones. Most soils in Florida are coarse textured mineral soils. Soil texture refers to the size of the mineral soil particles, inorganic material. Sand particles are large and coarse, whereas silt and clay particles are much smaller and are considered fine textured. Fine textured soils have slower water percolation and hold more nutrients than coarse textured soils. However, fine textured soils may be poor soils for growing moringa due to poor drainage and aeration. An ideal soil for growing moringa combines the drainage and aeration of a coarse textured soil with the water and nutrient holding capacity of a fine textured soil. The ideal soil would have mineral material, air, water, and organic matter in the amounts approximated in Figure 4.1. These balanced soil characteristics are often present in loam soils, which are not very common in Florida. Often, the soil characteristics in any area are not ideal for moringa growth, in which case the soil can be modified using amendments or additives, and in many cases, simply raising the soil level with composted soil mix and oak mulch can be sufficient for ideal growing results. Soil amendments are added to improve the physical characteristics of the soil. Soil characteristics that can be altered using amendments are structure, drainage, water holding capacity, and nutrient holding capacity. Organic matter is often considered the most important soil amendment. Organic materials recommended for soil modification include various composts, coconut coir, sphagnum peat, Florida peat, oak wood chips, sawdust, and wood shavings. If wood products are used in your soil, a nitrogen source, biostimulant fertilizer should be present while the wood is decaying. Decomposing wood absorbs nitrogen and can rob it from the moringa tree. As an example, you plant your moringa tree in a pot and cover the soil with a layer of oak mulch, but it's touching the stem. After about a week, you begin to see the stem being eaten away and is essentially crippling the tree. That's because the oak mulch is touching the stem and is robbing the tiny stem of nitrogen, a key ingredient in giving moringa structure and rigidity. Green manure, vegetation from a cover crop or other source, is excellent for improving soil conditions, but decomposition time needs to be allowed. Before putting green material on your soil, like the chop and drop method, instead, mulch or chip any green organic material and allow it to compost into soil for several weeks to months before amending the location you'll be planting moringa tree. To be effective, a large volume of any organic material should be used. There are two main types of organic material that can be lasagna layered to help them break down to composted soil faster, which includes greens, weeds, grass, fresh leaves, food scraps, and browns, small sticks, paper products, branches, and dry leaves. Stack these two types of organic material in a pile or compost area for several weeks to months before amending the location you'll be planting moringa trees. Once the lasagna layered organic matter has been composting and flipped a few times and broken down at least to 60% soil, It should be applied to the location you are amending at a depth of 1 to 3 inches and incorporated, tilled, uniformly into the top 6 inches of the soil. The use of organic oak mulch chips on top of the amended soil will, over time, improve soil conditions even more. In established moringa tree orchards, the use of organic mulch is the best method of incorporating organic matter into the soil. Other amendments such as nitrogen, phosphorus, or lime may also need to be incorporated depending on existing soil conditions and pH. Several inorganic products may be used to improve soil conditions. Calcified clay improves water holding capacity and in some instances may improve drainage and aeration. Colloidal phosphate has also been used successfully as a soil conditioner. Vermiculite is sometimes used to increase water and nutrient holding capacity. Perlite is yet another inorganic conditioner that is used to improve drainage characteristics. In determining whether to use a soil amendment, availability, cost, and the difficulty of applying the material must be weighed against the potential improvements. Nearly all soil conditioners require incorporation into the soil. Chapter 4.2, Soil pH and Adjustments. Soil pH refers to the acidity or alkalinity of the soil. Soil pH on a scale of 0 to 14, with the midpoint 7 being neutral. A pH above 7 is alkaline, and alkaline soils are often referred to as basic or sweet. A pH below 7 is referred to as acidic or sour. Moringa grows best in about 6.3 pH and can still grow in a wide range from about 5.8 to 6.7. The pH can determine tree growth rate, the size and color of the leaf, and the amount of drumsticks the tree will produce. In commercial settings, pH is adjusted at different times of the growth cycle, either inspiring vegetative growth when they are young or inspiring more drumstick growth with age and seasons, also determining when to adjust. Moringa pH requirements have been determined from scientific experimentation or from extended accurate observation. It is wrong to assume all moringa trees will grow best at pH 6.3 simply because most moringa trees do best in that range. However, if it is necessary to speculate, 5.8 to 6.7 would be the best guess. Well-drained sandy soils, low pine flatwoods, and organic soils are frequently acidic in Florida. If the pH is low, any of these soils can benefit from the addition of lime. In contrast, many of the soils in extreme South Florida and along coastal areas have a high pH. Be aware that many pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, and liquid forms of biostimulants and fertilizers perform best with a water pH of 5.5 to 8. Be sure to test your water pH as well as your soil. Soil pH cannot be measured visually and should always be tested before adding amendments. Measuring pH can be done easily. Several simple chemical tests are available, which are accurate enough for horticultural use. A wide variety of pH meters ranging from several dollars to more than $1,000 are also available. You should work closely with your local university or extension service office on soil testing both for pH and basic nutrients. Soil testing, sample collection, and submission forms are available from your local extension office or university. UF Extension soil testing laboratory publications contain Media Test Information Sheet SL134, Produce Soil Test Information Sheet SL135, or Landscape and Vegetable Garden Test Information. Sheet SL136 should be referenced for additional information. See references. Raising the pH. If an application of lime is recommended after soil testing, the amount of lime to apply to acid soils depends largely on the initial pH and the buffering capacity of the individual soil. Buffering refers to soil's ability to neutralize any acid or base being added. In cases where soils have high buffering capabilities, and if you wanted to raise the pH, you may need to add even more lime. The Soil Testing Laboratory at the University of Florida uses a method which considers pH and buffer capacity in determining the lime requirement of individual soils. Much of the difference in buffering capacity of individual soils is related to the amount of silt, clay, and organic matter present. The greater the amounts of these that are present, the higher the buffer capacity. This test is run when specifically requested through your local UF County Extension agent or the soil testing laboratory. Crushed agricultural limestone or dolomite are the liming materials that are typically used to raise soil pH. Dolomite is preferable in most locations in Florida because it contains magnesium as well as calcium carbonate, and magnesium is often deficient in Florida soils. Hydrated lime may also be used. However, the amount should be reduced by 25% because hydrated lime can burn moringa more easily than carbonate lime. Burn refers to spiking the pH to soon too fast results in a term known as leaf burn. Because lime needs to be incorporated within the top 6 inches of the soil pH adjustments, with lime must be done prior to planting. Over-liming or adding lime when the soil doesn't need it can have negative effects that can be worse than doing nothing. Lime may also be added to artificial growing mixes as described in this chapter. In this case, the lime must be carefully measured and thoroughly mixed into the media. An approximation of the amount of lime needed for raising pH can be made from the tables in Figure 3.3. Lowering pH. Florida has some strongly alkaline soils in which it is difficult or impossible to correct the pH. In contrast, if a high pH is the result of over-liming, correction may be possible. In many cases, however, alkaline soils in Florida are the result of a large percentage of lime rock or shell in the soil. Lime rock and shell are composed primarily of calcium carbonate and perhaps magnesium carbonate, both of which increase the soil pH. Adding an acidifier will temporarily adjust the pH of the soil, but the acidification causes the lime rock or shell to become soluble, which then neutralizes the acidifier. High pH in a landscape is not always due to natural soil characteristics. Use of crushed limestone or crushed shell as a road base, fill, or foundation can increase the pH of the surrounding area. For this reason, adding lime rock should be considered when used as decorative rocks in the landscape. Other rocks, such as river gravel, are less soluble and have little effect on pH, but may also affect how moringa trees grow. In alkaline conditions where a pH adjustment is warranted, sulfur is the recommended soil amendment for lowering pH. Superfine wettable or dusting sulfur is also used to lower soil pH. The rate for dusting sulfur to decrease the soil pH 1 unit is approximately 1/3 of the amount of limestone used to raise the soil pH 1 unit. The amount applied should not exceed 1 pound per 100 square feet at any one application. If sulfur is being applied around moringa trees, the same amount should be applied. However, 2 separate applications should be made 60 days apart. Iron sulfate, ferrous sulfate, can also be used to lower soil pH with a faster, more temporary effect than wettable sulfur. Iron sulfate does add iron, which is often unavailable with high pH. The standard rate for iron sulfate is 1 pound per 100 square feet, and it may be necessary to reapply in 60 days. Repeated applications may reduce the amount of manganese available in the soil. Of the metallic sulfates, iron sulfate is relatively expensive and will stain sidewalks, while aluminum sulfate is effective in correcting pH, but too much aluminum can be harmful to moringa growth. As indicated previously, the correction of pH in highly alkaline soils will be very short-lived. The moringa tree nutrient availability is easily affected by soil pH. Therefore, changes in pH can adversely affect its growth. Nutrient solubility changes with soil pH. If a nutrient is in an insoluble form, the plant cannot use it. Figure 3.5 shows the effect of pH on plant nutrient availability. In this figure, decreasing availability of each nutrient is indicated by a decrease in the width of the bar. Again, for a plant to use a nutrient, the nutrient must be present in the soil in a soluble form. Nutrient solubility is changed with the pH changes. Adjusting pH. Because of the relationship between pH and nutrient availability, maintaining the correct pH in nursery potting mixes is crucial to successful production of plants. Moringa trees can tolerate an acid potting mix, pH 5.0, 6.0, but the foliage will be affected. For better foliage on your moringa trees, pH 6.0, 6.5 for container-grown moringa trees. Changing the pH after plants are potted and growing is difficult. Therefore, adjustments are most easily made prior to planting. Replant moringa trees in containers each year to maintain pH balance and nutrient profile. Low pH levels can be raised in potting media by adding liming materials such as dolomite or calcium carbonate. High pH levels are lowered by adding sulfur. The amounts of these materials needed to provide a desired pH depends on the type of organic material in the potting mix and the original pH. In sandy potting media, small amounts of lime or sulfur are needed, while larger amounts are required to affect the pH of pure peat moss. Avoid using peat moss when growing moringa in pots or in the ground. Alternatively, use more neutral pH material like coconut coir. Currently, we use peat moss biodegradable pellets to plant moringa seeds and sprout for shipping. To balance the pH, add perlite and soak pellets in moringa biostimulant prior to seeding. For better balanced pellet use, coconut coir. Moringa seedlings in peat moss may need to be adjusted through wicking method or soaking the sprouted trees in moringa biostimulant. Calcium carbonate applied to the surface of the pellet or potting mix and watered in will also raise pH. However, it may take longer for it to be effective. If pH must be altered after moringa trees are already growing in a potting mix, the following materials and rates should be used to raise pH. Hydrated lime, calcium hydroxide, should be used, but with caution. Hydrated lime can damage plants if applied in solution at more than 1 pound per 100 gallons per 100 square feet of surface area, pots, or benches. The moringa trees may need to be treated again 4 weeks later if pH has not reached the desired level. Calcium carbonate applied to the surface of the potting mix and watered in will also raise pH. However, it may take longer for it to be effective. If pH levels are too high in potting mixes of established crops, sulfur can be applied at the rate of 1 pound per 100 square feet of surface area to lower pH. Sulfur should not be applied more often than every 4 weeks because rapid pH changes may damage plants. Alternatives for correcting pH. 1. Select healthy seeds and plant moringa trees in well-draining soils closest to 6.3 pH year-round, tolerant of existing soil pH. This is a step toward low-maintenance landscaping. 2. Use our biostimulant program specially designed to overcome the nutrient problems most growers encounter and think it's something else. Pest infestation can be a result of poor tree health due to soil pH. Regular use of biostimulant reduces the level of expertise needed to apply and may reduce regular use of soil acidifiers, chelated fertilizers, and other foliar applications. 3. Remove and replace enough soil in the planting holes to allow the plant to grow on an island of good soil. This method can be more labor-intensive, more time and expenses, but must be done at planting. 4. Raise the entire level of the current ground level with sand, compost, and oak chips. 5. Regularly apply a layer of oak chips to the soil surface so that the organic content of the soil gradually increases. This gradually reduces the pH. Chapter 4.3. The essential elements of soil. The 16 elements that all moringa trees require to complete their life cycles are referred to as essential elements or vital nutrients. These elements are obtained by moringa trees from the air, water, and the soil solution. Elements are not obtained by plants in the pure single form. Rather, they are in compound forms such as carbon from carbon dioxide, CO2, in the air, or hydrogen from water, H20. The first three essential elements are carbon, C, hydrogen, H, and oxygen, O. These three are derived from air and water and are considered macro elements. The terms macro and micro refer to the relative amounts of elements needed by plants. The remaining 13 elements are obtained by the plant through the soil. Typically, nutrients are supplied to the soil with amendments like manure and other animal byproducts like bone meal or eggshells, for example. The most common application for soil amendments are with biostimulants and fertilizers that are in soluble form, as discussed in the previous section, only happens when soil pH is in the proper range for that element, as seen in figure 4.4. 6 of the elements, nitrogen, N, phosphorus, P, potassium, K, calcium, Ca, magnesium, Mg, and sulfur, S, are considered macro elements along with C, H, and O. In addition, N, P, and K are often referred to as fertilizer elements or primacy elements because they are most often applied as fertilizers. The 7 remaining elements, boron, B, copper, Tu, iron, Fe, manganese, Men, molybdenum, Mo, zinc, Zn, and chlorine, Cl, are referred to as microelements. Although the amounts of these elements required for the growth of moringa trees is relatively low, they are still essential. Micronutrients are the elements most often affected by pH. A common mnemonic device for remembering the 16 essential elements is as follows: CHOPKNSKVMGB Men Q Zen Mo and Kel. It reads, C. Hopkins Cafe managed by Mine Ku Zin Mo and Clyde. By remembering this simple saying, you can more easily remember all the essential nutrients. The rest of this section provides brief descriptions of the macro and micronutrients and how moringa trees use them. Nitrogen produces dark green vegetative growth as well as increased yields of foliage, fruit, and seed. Nitrogen is also a factor in the protein quantity of food crops and increased water efficiency. Nitrogen is a component of the chlorophyll molecule and is therefore necessary for photosynthesis. Nitrogen deficiency symptoms include light green color of the vegetative growth, slowed or stunted growth, and browning at the tips of lower leaves. Excess nitrogen produces succulent growth, delays maturity and fruiting, and increases susceptibility to insects and disease. Phosphorus stimulates root formation, hastens maturity, stimulates blooming, and aids in fruit and seed formation. Phosphorus is necessary for the processes of photosynthesis and respiration as a component in energy transfer. Phosphorus deficiency symptoms include stunted growth, purple leaves, delayed maturity, and decreased flower, fruit, and seed yields. Phosphorus is a naturally occurring element in many Florida soils, so there are times when fertilizers containing phosphorus are not required. Always use a soil or tissue test to determine if additional phosphorus is required. Potassium increases plant vigor and disease resistance, improves rigidity, contributes to cold hardiness, and is important for seed and fruit quality. Potassium is essential to the formation of starches, sugars, and proteins. Potassium deficiency symptoms include scorching or burning of outer edges or tips of lower leaves, poorly developed root systems, loss of disease resistance, and decreased fruit yields. Magnesium is another component of chlorophyll, along with nitrogen, and is a catalyst for other plant processes such as seed germination and sugar synthesis. Magnesium deficiency symptoms appear in several plants as a yellowing of older leaves with a V-shaped area at the base of the leaf remaining green. In North Florida, this is most likely to appear in late summer or fall. In South and much of Central Florida, deficiency symptoms are noted year-round, and most plants benefit from magnesium applications. Calcium is necessary in cell growth and division. It is fixed in cell walls and is necessary for new growth in plants. Deficiency symptoms of calcium include inhibition of root growth, deformed terminal leaves or branches, and death of shoot and root tips. Sulfur is an essential component of several plant proteins. Though not a component of the chlorophyll molecule, sulfur is necessary for chlorophyll synthesis. Sulfur deficiency symptoms are often like nitrogen deficiency. Symptoms include chlorosis, yellowing of younger leaves, and light green tissue between darker green leaves. Manganese, iron, copper, zinc, boron, molybdenum, and chlorine are the 7 elements considered micronutrients. Micronutrients control and influence plant processes involved in plant growth. Micronutrients are activators or catalysts for chlorophyll formation, iron, manganese, and zinc, protein formation, manganese, energy transfer, copper, molybdenum, and manganese, sugar translocation, boron, nitrogen fixation, molybdenum, and photosynthetic reactions, chlorine. Micronutrient deficiency symptoms often are specific for various crops. Symptoms such as chlorosis, stunted root systems, and stem or root death are like many of the macronutrient deficiencies. Reference materials on micronutrient deficiencies for specific crops should be consulted. Often in the nursery, iron deficiency is the most important of the micronutrient deficiencies. Iron is not readily available in alkaline soils, and plants growing in these soils will often show iron deficiency symptoms. The symptoms of iron chlorosis are progressive, starting with a gradual loss of green color, then turning yellow, with the veins remaining green. In extreme cases, younger leaves may turn almost white. The color change is due to loss of chlorophyll, which requires iron for its production. Iron deficiency symptoms can sometimes be temporarily alleviated by regular foliar applications of iron sulfate or chelates, but long-term correction will only occur when poor soil conditions have been corrected. Manganese deficiency is primarily caused by the element's insolubility in high pH situations. In some cases, cold soil temperatures during the winter and spring months reduce root activity and thus uptake of some nutrients, especially amine. Symptoms of manganese deficiency are like iron deficiency, and both are often treated simultaneously in South Florida. Soil testing is an important tool for determining nutrient deficiencies. Plants can be deficient in an essential element long before the deficiency becomes visible. Soil tests and tissue analysis can pinpoint deficiencies as well as indicate fertilizer elements that may not be needed. Chapter 4.4 Heavy Metal Soil Testing and Nutritional Leaf Analysis. Moringa is the most nutritious plant on land, a marvel of nature. This miraculous tree can absorb and pull up an array of nutrients from the soil, making them available for people, pets, and plants for supplements. Moringa also can pull heavy metals from the soil, a cause for education and training to ensure that your moringa material is safe for consumption. Before your moringa tree material can be used to sell for consumption, it is important to consider several environmental factors. Is the moringa you're harvesting in a low-lying area with standing water? Do you know if the moringa tree is close to or is being watered with reclaimed water sources? Was the moringa tree growing in a new neighborhood? Was the property recently under construction? Do the neighbors spray weeds, use glyphosate products? Before harvesting and selling your moringa material, including the drumstick fruit, flowers, seeds, or the leaves for teas, powders, and supplements, consider getting your location a heavy metals soil test. To become a certified member, fulfilling orders with your moringa material, a heavy metal soil test is required. Heavy metals to test include. Then, once you know the soil is within safe levels, test your product. Take the fresh harvested leaves from your tree, dry, and make powder. Then, submit a sample for laboratory analysis as well. Testing the leaf is called a nutritional food grade analysis. Our nutritional leaf analysis includes to avoid heavy metals like lead and mercury from being in your soils, resulting in contamination of your leaf and drumsticks. Take the added precautions when growing moringa trees. If the toxins are not identified beforehand, they could be consumed by people, pets, and other plants, causing harm or injury. Figure 4 to 5, Soils Test Analytical Report. Moringa root tubers are safest to consume as a young spice before the skin has fully formed on the outside of the tuber. Usually, the skin of moringa tubers form within the first year and slowly accumulate high levels of arsenic and barium. If heavy metals are in the soil, over time the moringa root tuber will begin to absorb the toxins and store them in the skin. Avoid eating moringa root tubers that have already formed a skin, or avoid consuming the skin. A soil test will also provide information to you about the nutritional status of a soil and may aid in the detection of potential problems which could limit growth. Test the soil area prior to being planted, or consider getting a composite soil sample if you are unsure of your soil ingredients. To test soil for nutrients in the landscape, obtain a composite soil sample by testing subsamples from your property. 1. Dig 10 to 15 small holes throughout the sample area, i.e., the backyard. Each soil sample should be no more than 1/4 acre. Each 1/4 acre that you are growing on should be sampled separately. Carefully pull back mulch, grass, or ground covers to expose bare soil with a trowel or shovel. Dig the small holes 6 inches deep and remove a 1-inch thick by 6-inch deep slice of soil. 2. Combine and mix the substrate sample in a clean plastic bucket. Obtain separate composite samples from areas that have different soil types. There can be different cultural practices or contents of previous plants that have been on your property. Moringa has a distinct fertility requirement. 3. Send your composite samples in separate bags for multiple areas, making up the entire space growing moringa trees. Get your results in email and share with us at email@wegrowmoringa.com. Chapter 4-5, Biostimulants, Fertilizers, and Application. Think about it. If moringa is the most nutritious plant on land, then we could use moringa to feed plants too. When moringa is grown in proper conditions with the perfect soil and pH, the nutrient content of moringa is unmatched. Let's use moringa to grow other fruits and vegetables too. Moringa leaves are a complete protein with all 9 essential and all 9 non-essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are only found in foods that we eat and need to be ingested. The 9 non-essential amino acids can be made from the body, but are also found to be present in moringa. The most important factor in making moringa useful in agriculture is its high protein levels. Amino acids are compounds, and the building blocks of proteins. Moringa has high amounts of proteins and enzymes present in the leaves, which also makes it great in feeding other things than just people and pets, but also plants. More precisely, moringa has high levels of proteins, which is the catalyst for enzymes to bring about a chemical reaction. Those chemical reactions create hormones. Zeatin is a hormone present in moringa leaves in the cytokinin family, which is derived from adenine. Adenine is a nucleobase, a purine derivative, which is a compound mostly made of nitrogen. The enzymes and proteins present in moringa makes lots of zeatin. In fact, moringa can have hundreds to millions of times more zeatin than other plants. Zeatin, a phytohormone obtained from moringa leaves, plays a major role in its growth and development. That's why moringa is one of the fastest growing trees in the world, because of its high levels of zeatin. It helps all plants grow faster, producing larger root systems, allowing plants to absorb higher quantities of nutrients from the ground. With more zeatin in a plant, it reduces the time needed for seeds to sprout or germinate. Zeatin is naturally occurring and helps to form larger diameter trunks, making plants stronger and more resistant to wind. It strengthens plants' immune systems, making them more resistant to insects, bacteria, and other pathogens. Zeatin helps to produce more flowers and seeds, helps detoxify plants exposed to insecticides and herbicides, grow larger fruits with improved flavors and sugars, allows plants to develop to their fullest genetic potential. When growth-stimulating genes are activated, cells begin to grow and increase in size, causing higher leaf production and more chlorophyll. Increases yields up to 40% depending on the crop and shortens the growth cycles. The antioxidants and other compounds strengthen plants to resist stress and make them more resistant to drought. Moringa has high levels of zeatin. That's why we use moringa leaves to feed other plants. Moringa can make other plants grow fast and strong as well. Technically, the zeatin present in moringa leaves is acting as a biostimulant. It helps to stimulate proteins and enzymes in other plants. Moringa biostimulant is an aqueous solution that contains polyphenols, flavonoids, phenolic acids, minerals C, P, Mg, Mg, Fe, K, as well as microminerals such as zinc, copper, manganese, iron, selenium, and boron. Vitamins, enzymes, amino acids, metabolites, caffeolic acids, growth hormones such as auxin, gibberellins, and cytokinins. In particular, zeatin of the cytokinins family, which is found naturally in abundance in moringa leaves. Moringa used as a biostimulant when applied to plants or soils may enhance the plant's nutrient uptake, nutrient efficiency, plant growth, and tolerance to abiotic stress and plant quality. Think of biostimulants as a supplement for the plant, like we take vitamins to boost the processes which keep our bodies working properly, which is the same as the action a biostimulant has on plants. Moringa biostimulant liquid, moringa leaf extract MLE, is a concentrate of the moringa leaf, extracting a hormone known as zeatin, which can be present in moringa leaves thousands of more times than any other plant. Zeatin is a naturally occurring hormone, the main active ingredient in the biostimulant. The moringa biostimulant liquid is in a concentrate form and should be diluted at a ratio of 1:32. That's 1 part biostimulant to 32 parts water, or 1 oz of biostimulant to 32 ounces of water mixture. Apply it to plants as a foliar spray or in irrigation lines every 15 days. Moringa biostimulant powder, moringa leaf powder, is the moringa leaf dried and powdered and used as a soil amendment. Moringa biostimulant powder can be added to the soil and mixed in at a 5% ratio. Add moringa powder to plants in pots or directly in the ground. Mix in before planting. Add moringa biostimulant powder every season or each time a new planting of the plot is about to begin. Moringa biostimulant. Seed cake is the byproduct of pressing moringa seeds for oil. The crushed moringa seeds are known as moringa seed cake because of their texture and look. It can be added to the soil and mixed in at a 5% ratio. Add moringa seed cake to plants in pots or directly in the ground. Mix in before planting. Probiotics and mycorrhizal additives. Adding more information soon. Micronutrients. Micronutrients should be applied as needed and depending on the situation, possibly more frequently in South Florida. They may be applied as part of a fertilizer or applied separately as a special mix. Micronutrients should be applied singularly to the soil only in the case of severe deficiencies because of the danger of applying excessive amounts. Micronutrient deficiencies can be corrected with foliar sprays if deficiencies are not severe. However, correction is usually temporary. Persistent deficiencies may be prevented by applying a fertilizer with micronutrient supplements. Maintenance of recommended pH will minimize micronutrient deficiencies. Specific micronutrient recommendations are available for various pH problems and for specific locations. Adding organic fertilizer to your moringa trees. Fertilizers will not be as effective if the soil biology is not present in the soil. Refer to biostimulants, micronutrients, probiotics, and mycorrhizal methods to accompany added fertilizers. Fertilizers are used to add nutrients and minerals to the soil. Over time, moringa trees will use up what's available in the process of making their food, meaning essential nutrients need replacing. There are a variety of fertilizers, but the main categories often describe whether the nutrients they're providing come from synthetic or natural sources. Compost is another natural alternative to synthetic fertilizers and avoids the detrimental environmental consequences associated with those that have been artificially produced. Some common methods to fertilizer your soil with to add compost veggie and food scraps that have been heated and turned for a period to break down and use as composted soil without any remaining food debris. Sift larger particles from the compost to have a rich veggie starter medium. Rock minerals. The azomite. Rock Dust Company has a great organic solution for fertilizing your soil, and adding rock dust is a common fertilizer additive to soil. It has iron and many other elements to fertilize your soil. It's mined from the earth. Worm castings. Use the excrements of worms in your soil as an organic fertilizer. Biochar is the charred remains of organic materials. Biochar is made from burning materials in a controlled environment with the least amount of oxygen to burn the fire clean and leave the charcoal before turning into ash. Potash is not as valuable as biochar. Keep your biochar from turning to potash with simple yet effective techniques. Seaweed can be collected from beaches and coastal areas and added to raised beds or spread in the fields for added fertilization. Eggshells can be crushed and soaked in vinegar to create a fermented calcium juice that is more soluble than just putting eggshells in your soil. Biostimulant cannot help utilize the nutrients in the soil if they're not present in the first place, meaning that the soil needs to be nutrient rich before planting. When moringa biostimulant is used on any plant with good quality soil and all natural fertilizer, the combination of the two will keep your garden thriving. Mushrooms. Understanding the difference between biostimulants and fertilizers ensures we can fulfill our moringa tree's nutritional needs. There are far less rules and regulations in selling biostimulants than fertilizers. Nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, NPK. Fertilizers are organic or inorganic materials added to the soil to supply moringa trees with nutrients. The law designates nitrogen, N, phosphorus, P, and potassium, K, as primary nutrients for moringa trees and all other plants as well. These nutrients are always listed on the tag in that order. For example, the 3 numbers on a fertilizer label that read 12 to 48 contains an equivalent of 12% nitrogen, 4% phosphoric acid, and 8% potash by weight. To determine the amount of nutrient present in each amount of fertilizer, multiply the percent nutrient by the weight. For example, a 50-pound bag of 12-4-8 fertilizer would contain 6 pounds of nitrogen, 0.12 x 50/6. Total nitrogen, available phosphoric acid, and soluble potash are defined by the fertilizer law as the primary plant nutrients. The 3 numbers, such as 10 to 30-10, are known as the guaranteed analysis of the material. The sum of these, or the total available primary plant nutrient, is the grade of the mixture. A statement of total available primary plant nutrient is no longer required on the label and does not appear in the sample label shown in Figure 4.5. However, the law states that a mixture of less than 16% cannot be sold unless a special permit is received from the Commissioner of Agriculture, and the label states low analysis fertilizer in as conspicuous a manner as the brand name. The guaranteed analysis must be in whole numbers except for specialty fertilizers. Specialty fertilizers have been defined as commercial fertilizers in packages sold or offered for sale for home use. Commercial fertilizers containing a total of 5% or less total nitrogen, available phosphoric acid, and soluble potash may be guaranteed in other than whole percentages. Any excellent fertilizer products are commercially available. The discussion and recommendations in this manual are generic and are meant to emphasize the importance of understanding not only the fundamental concepts of what fertilizers are and how they are used, but also how to compare one product with another. The best way to compare fertilizer cost is probably based on cost per pound of nitrogen. However, other factors such as slow release characteristics and micronutrients affect fertilizer cost and value. Generally, three fertilizer characteristics increase the value and add to the cost of a fertilizer. These are slow release characteristics, presence of micronutrients, especially fritted or chelated, and whether the fertilizer is prilled. Slow release characteristics extend the period the fertilizer remains effective in the soil. Micronutrients are added to supply an important plant need, while fritting and chelating are methods of increasing or extending micronutrient availability to plants. Prills are formulated as BB-sized balls that are clean and easy to spread. Customers will buy these premium fertilizers if they are aware of their increased value. Numerous specialty fertilizers are available that can enhance growth when used for the special situations for which they are prepared. Fertilizer best management practices and laws. Many of Florida's water resources are particularly susceptible to pollution because of the state's unique geology and climate. Floridians obtain almost all their drinking water from groundwater via wells. Groundwater supplies often lie near the surface and may be covered by nothing but sandy soil. Surface waters in Florida are very sensitive to even small additions of pollution, which cause widespread ecosystem changes in our sensitive estuaries, lakes, rivers, and the Everglades. Users of fertilizers and pesticides need to consider the soil's susceptibility to leaching and runoff, the distance to the water table, the slope of the land, and the distance to surface waters and storm drains, in addition to moringa tree nutrition, disease, and pest factors. Selected properties of soils have been used to develop a rating system for runoff and leaching potential of soils. The USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service has rated soils according to this system in counties having published soil survey reports. Determine the susceptibility of the soil to leaching, soil texture, organic matter, content, soil moisture, and permeability. All affect pesticide movement. Some pesticides readily move through soils that are well drained, sandy, or low in organic matter. Label language will alert users of such limitations. If sinkholes are present, surface water runoff can quickly reach groundwater with little natural soil filtering. The slope of the field and the relative location of lakes, ponds, streams, canals, or wetlands to the application site also determine the vulnerability of these surface water bodies to contamination from pesticides. The Florida-friendly best management practices for protection of water resources by the green industries, while not regulatory in nature, provides information and guidance on reducing pollution and conserving water. Since the original publication of the BMP manual in 2002, several new laws have been passed, new research completed, and new products developed. Therefore, the 2018 version contains new information in many areas, especially concerning irrigation systems and fertilizer use. After weather, local cultural practices are the biggest factors in determining how well your moringa operation performs. They include irrigation, fertilization, mowing, and pruning. The location of your moringa trees are the most important factors when planning a design. The amount of pesticides, fertilizers, and water required often directly correlate with local cultural practices and how well they are carried out. Members whose duties include activities related to BMPs should be properly trained to perform those activities before going into the field. Remember, an ounce of prevention is worth many dollars of cure. Labeling of materials sold as fertilizers is regulated by the Florida Commercial Fertilizer Law. The information and format required make fertilizer labels comparable, and if understood properly, a qualified comparison of fertilizers can be made. The label works based on a guaranteed analysis, with each of the elements guaranteed to be present in a minimum amount. Guaranteed analysis is based on percent by weight of the specified element or compound. A detailed discussion of the Florida fertilizer label follows. The Florida fertilizer label. Fertilizers are manufactured from a wide variety of materials to supply required nutrients to plants. Once these materials are mixed, it becomes difficult to distinguish the materials present. In the past, a few unscrupulous manufacturers have taken advantage of this to increase their profit. To protect consumers and legitimate manufacturers from such practices, the Florida legislature enacted the first fertilizer law in 1889. The law has been amended many times since its enactment to regulate the manufacture and sale of fertilizers in the state. The most recent changes to the rules took place in 2007. Manufacturers are required to purchase and affix a label to each bag, package, container, or lot of fertilizer offered for sale in the state. For packaged products, this information shall either 1. Appear on the front or back of the package, 2. Occupy at least 1/3 of a side of the package, or 3. Be printed on a tag and attached to the package. This information shall be in a readable and conspicuous form. For bulk products, this information in printed form shall accompany delivery, and 5 analysis tags attached to the delivery ticket shall be supplied to the purchaser at time of delivery. The law requires that each label show specific information about the analysis and composition of the mixture or material. The terms available phosphoric acid or available phosphate and soluble potash may be used instead of available phosphorus and soluble potassium, respectively. An example of the Florida fertilizer label appears in Figure 4.5 on page 92. The following information explains the details of label requirements. 1. License number. Each label of fertilizer shall bear the Florida license number. The fertilizer license number shall appear and be clearly identified on all fertilizer labels with a capital F preceding the license number. The number must be clear, legible, and appear prominently and conspicuously on the label in proximity to the brand name or guaranteed analysis. 2. Brand name. A brand name is used by the licensee to identify his product. Brand means a term, design, or trademark used in connection with one or several grades of fertilizer. The label shall also include a grade near the brand. The grade means the percentages in fertilizer total. Nitrogen expressed as N, available phosphate expressed as P2O5, and soluble potassium expressed as K2O, stated in whole numbers in that order. 3. Net weight. The net weight is the actual weight present in the package or container. The term bulk shall suffice for bulk products. 4. Name and address. The name and street address of the manufacturer or registrant of the fertilizer must be included. 5. Organic. When the term organic is used in the label, labeling, or advertisement of any fertilizer, the water-insoluble nitrogen must not be less than 60% of the total guaranteed nitrogen so designated. 6. Guaranteed analysis. The guaranteed analysis section of the label is divided into the percentage of total nitrogen, which is the sum of all forms of nitrogen present in the mixture, available phosphate, soluble potassium, and the statement of each secondary plant nutrient present in the mixture. The chlorine content is stated as the maximum percentage present in the mixture. 7. Derived from. A derived from section is a listing of the actual source materials that constitute the primary and secondary plant nutrients guarantees. Only those materials which constitute sources of primary, secondary plant and micronutrients shall be shown on the application for registration and the label under the statement derived from. Commercial, registered, or copyrighted brand or trade names shall not be permitted in guarantees or listing of source materials, and only in the product name of fertilizer produced by or for the firm holding the rights to such a name. Guaranteed analysis. Total nitrogen. Nitrogen may be included in the form of nitrate nitrogen. 2. Ammoniacal nitrogen. 3. Other water-soluble nitrogen. 5. Water-insoluble nitrogen. A statement of the percentage of each form present in the fertilizer must be given. Nitrate nitrogen includes all the nitrate, NO3, form in the fertilizer mixture. Ammoniacal nitrogen includes all the ammonium, NH4+ form of nitrogen in the fertilizer. The nitrogen breakdown shall be equal to the total nitrogen guarantee. When urea is present, it may be guaranteed as other water-soluble nitrogen or urea nitrogen at the option of the licensee. When urea formaldehyde is present, not more than 40% of the total nitrogen from this source may be claimed as other water-soluble nitrogen or urea nitrogen at the option of the licensee. Many of the common fertilizer sources of nitrogen are listed in Figure 4.6. Water-insoluble nitrogen originally meant such natural organic materials as dried blood and tankage. Natural organic sources become available in the soil by microbiological action that converts the nitrogen first to ammonium and then to the nitrate form. Many forms of water-insoluble nitrogen have been developed so that now organic and inorganic water-insoluble sources are included in this figure. Some other water-insoluble nitrogen forms are rendered insoluble by coating with sulfur or other materials, by chemical combination with other elements, or by inhibiting the activity of microorganisms that release the nitrogen from insoluble forms. Many of these sources are treated in such a way as to provide for a long continuous release of nitrogen. Available phosphoric acid includes water-soluble and citrate-soluble phosphorus, which is soluble in weak acids found in the soil solution. The guaranteed available phosphoric acid is the oxide equivalent of the actual phosphorus in the mixture. Elemental phosphorus, P, comprise 44% of the amount of available phosphoric acid guaranteed in the mixture. Soluble potash. This is the oxide equivalent of the potassium present in the mixture. Elemental potassium comprises 83% of the guaranteed soluble potash. All the potassium guaranteed on a fertilizer label is soluble K, which implies that it goes into solution readily when applied to the soil, and that is immediately available for moringa uptake. Chlorine, not more than. Because chlorine is often toxic to plants or may reduce plant quality and yields, it is stated as a maximum possible percentage, not more than. Some greenhouse floral and vegetable crops show toxicity symptoms and reduce quality and yields from excessive chlorine. It is required that the statement "chlorine not more than" be placed on the label so that the purchaser is aware of the chlorine content of the product. The guaranteed analysis specifies the secondary plant nutrients present in elemental form. Magnesium, iron, zinc, copper, and manganese shall be expressed as total and/or water-soluble, soluble, depending upon the source materials formulated in the product. Chelated elements must be guaranteed separately when a chelating agent is denoted in the derivation statement below the guaranteed analysis. When sulfur is claimed as a plant nutrient, it shall be specified as to the form present, either free or combined or both. Figure 4.6 Example of nitrogenous fertilizer materials. Some fertilizer mixtures contain pesticides and are required by law to have a yellow label with conspicuous lettering in a contrasting color. Fertilizer manufacturers can include only approved pesticides at a rate below or equal to the maximum legal rate. The label must include crops for which the pesticides are recommended, required precautionary statements, and directions for use. The percentage of active ingredient by weight must appear on the label, along with the pounds of active ingredient per ton of fertilizer. Labels must also appear on individual materials sold as fertilizers, even if they are not mixed fertilizers. Guarantees for such products are like those on a label for a mixed fertilizer. All composts, soil conditioners, soil amendments, manipulated manures, and soil additives are defined as fertilizers by law and should be labeled appropriately. The label must contain the product's brand name, common name, and analysis in terms of the primary plant nutrient. Fertilizing moringa in urban landscapes. To adopt best management practices of the urban turf, sports lawns, or golf course industries, one should consider the rules and regulations for using fertilizers on your moringa trees in urban settings, especially if you have a plot of 50-100 large moringa trees in your backyard. Any fertilizers labeled for use on urban turf, sports turf, or lawns shall be no phosphate or low phosphate and have label restrictions for the application of nitrogen. It further specifies that no phosphate fertilizer means phosphate levels below 0.5% and intended for urban areas. Low phosphate fertilizer is intended for new or established applications with phosphate levels equal to or above 0.5%. New urban area are not recommended to grow moringa trees because of the high levels of nitrogen needed to establish the soil. Moringa trees should be grown in established neighborhoods. No phosphate fertilizers shall not contain more than 0.5% of available phosphate expressed as P2O5. The grade shall indicate a zero guarantee. Fertilizers labeled as low phosphate shall have use directions that do not exceed an application rate of 0.25 lbs. P2O5 11 OOFT2 per application and not to exceed 0.50 lbs. P2O5 11,000 FT2 per year. Label use directions may be included that allow higher rates if an annual soil sample representative for the site shows the need for a higher application rate. Nitrogen shall not be applied at an application rate greater than 0.7 lbs of readily available nitrogen per 1,000 SQ. Eft at any one time based on the soluble fraction of formulated fertilizer with no more than 1 lobits, total N per 1,000 SQ goats, FTOTs to be applied at any one time. The following language shall appear conspicuously on bags of fertilizer sold at retail. Do not apply near water, storm drains, or drainage ditches. Do not apply if heavy rain is expected. Apply this product only to your lawn, garden, and sweep any product that lands on the driveway, sidewalk, or street back onto your lawn, garden. Fertilizers, other than specialty fertilizers labeled for urban turf, shall have directions for use not to exceed rates recommended in the Grow Moringa Best Management Practices document. See Bibliography, Chapter 10. Application rates for turf are covered more thoroughly under Fertilizer Recommendations for Urban Landscapes later in this chapter. Organic fertilizer application to moringa trees. Grow Moringa Collective certified members must know what organic fertilizer is best for their application, as well as when, how much, how often, and how to apply organic fertilizers. Certified members must know the products they are using, selling, or recommending. We must know not only the analysis, but also the other factors that cause one formulation of a particular fertilizer to be more valuable than another with the same analysis or results. For example, organic fertilizer recommendations vary greatly among landscapes-intensive hedge or orchard-style growing methods. Recommendations for each method of growing moringa trees are discussed in greater detail on the following pages. Additionally, the Grow Moringa Collective certified members must know the type of fertilizer program customers should be following. Are they growing intensive moringa beds, hedgerows, or orchard-style trees for seeds and drumsticks? Does the customer have a well-established landscape, or has it recently been constructed and is still being established? What are the special nutrient requirements for their situation? Are there special considerations due to proximity of saltwater? Are there extremes in soil pH? The area of the state in which the customer lives can also influence the fertilization program. With so many questions regarding fertilization, some generalizations and compromises must be made. When should you fertilize? The best response is, when was the last time you fertilized? And was that application based on soil test results? Knowing how long it has been since the last fertilization and using soil test results to make application decisions is an important starting point. When working with fertilizer, always consider the relationship between when, how much, and how often. Which fertilizer is best? Premium quality fertilizers will contain the best ingredients formulated and blended in such a way that they are easy to apply and very effective. When determining fertilizer needs of moringa in the landscape, soil testing is an easy, cost-effective way to determine mineral deficiencies. The use of soil test results will determine the analysis needed for site-specific conditions. Because of the mobility of most essential nutrients for moringa growth in Florida soils, one of the best indicators of appropriate fertilization and moringa health is tissue analysis. In the landscape, leaf analysis of moringa trees, along with appearance and soil analysis, can be used to diagnose the problems and the effectiveness of a fertilization program, especially for micronutrient deficiencies. For moringa growers, tissue analyses should be used in conjunction with media nutritional analyses to obtain the nutritional status of the container. Relying totally on media or tissue analysis for the basis of nutritional management decisions could result in improper management. Organic fertilizer placement on moringa trees. Fertilizer placement on moringa trees in the landscape in relation to the tree's root zone is very important. Studies have indicated that most plants on average have root depths are usually a maximum of 10 to 14 inches due to the naturally high oxygen concentrations near the soil surface, and more than 50% of the roots extend beyond the drip line by as much as 3 times. Comparatively, many roots of mulched moringa trees are located just beneath the mulch surface. Consequently, for maximum utilization, fertilizer should be applied to the soil or mulch surface. Since most feeder roots on moringa trees are shallow, there is no need to inject or place fertilizer deep in the soil. However, shallow soil injections on mounds, berms, and slopes and in compacted soil will reduce the amount of fertilizer runoff due to irrigation or rain. Figure 4.7 Fertilizer application with tree ring. Organic fertilizer should be applied to the mulch surface and to the unmulched area around a tree not to exceed 1 1/2 to 2 times the canopy diameter. See Figure 4.7. If the grass was fertilized within the past 2 weeks, do not apply additional organic fertilizer to the area around the base of the moringa trees. Only fertilize the mulched area determined by the amount of organic fertilizer should be applied to the mulch square footage. The fertilizer nutrients will move rapidly with irrigation water through the mulch, reaching the moringa tree roots. Most established moringa trees, 3 to 5 years after transplanting, growing in landscapes where grass and shrubs are fertilized, do not need additional fertilizer. Their root systems extend throughout the landscape past the edge of the tree canopy and receive nutrients when these areas are fertilized. However, supplemental applications may be needed for some trees because nutrient deficiencies could develop. There are a few situations where trunk injection of fertilizer is warranted. A good candidate for trunk injection would be a tree with a micronutrient deficiency that did not respond to soil applications of fertilizer. Each situation is different, and the merits of injection should be judged by a professional moringa tree specialist. Remember that moringa trees are permanently damaged by trunk injections, and the potential benefits must outweigh this damage. In more cases, because of the nature of moringa trees, a hard cut back to the base or roots may require the tree to make a full recovery after 2 to 3 years or regrowing a new, healthier trunk. But once a deficiency is recognized, then that could have also caused the tree to be more susceptible to pathogens and fungus. Fertilizer type for moringa trees. Fertilizer should always be organic and applied at the lowest of the ranges recommended, unless a soil test indicates that more is warranted. A complete fertilizer with a ratio of approximately 3.1.2 or 3.13, i.e. 15:5 to 10 or 15:5:15 of nitrogen, phosphorus pentoxide, P2O5, and potassium oxide, K2O, is generally recommended unless the soil test reveals that phosphorus and potassium are adequate. Fertilizers that are slow release, controlled release, sulfur-coated, or with nitrogen as IBDU or urea formaldehyde have extended release periods compared to fertilizers that are readily water-soluble. 30 to 50% of the nitrogen should be water-insoluble or slow release. This is beneficial because moringa roots can absorb nitrogen over a long period of time. A fertilizer containing 30 to 50% slow release potassium should be used in South Florida or where soil potassium is frequently inadequate. Fertilizer containing magnesium may be needed if plants often exhibit magnesium deficiency symptoms and for soils with inadequate magnesium. Water-soluble fertilizer is less expensive than products that provide extended release, but the components of the water-soluble fertilizer may leach quickly through the soil. In sandy soils, the soluble fertilizer may move past the root system after only a few inches of rainfall or irrigation. In finer textured marl, clay, or muck soils, leaching will be slower, but runoff may be greater. Remember that no more than 1/2 to 0.7 b 1000 ft2 of the readily available nitrogen should be in quick release form. Fertilizer amounts. For each organic fertilizer application, apply a maximum of 1 lb of nitrogen-rich compost or activated biochar per 1,000 ft2. This rate is easy to calculate from the information given on several composted soil bags and other organic fertilizer bags if store-bought. Simply divide the nitrogen percentage, the first number of the analysis, into 100. For example, you have purchased a 15-tire 5-LZO organic fertilizer. Divide 15 into 100. i.e. 115 or 6.6. Therefore, 6.6 pounds of 15 to 510 will supply 1 pound nitrogen to be distributed over 1,000 square feet of landscape area. If the soil tests high for phosphorus and potassium, these don't need to be applied. See Figure 4.8. Soils low in phosphorus and potassium should receive the equivalent of 0.7 and 1.4 pounds of phosphorus pentoxide, P2O5, and potassium oxide, K20, respectively, per 1000 FT2 per year. Phosphorus can be applied in one application. However, the total amount of potassium should be divided into 3 applications per year. Target pH and recommended amount of organic fertilizer with phosphorus pentoxide and potassium oxide rates for vegetative green moringa growth. Discontinue schedule once moringa tree goes to flower and fruiting if drumsticks are desired. Otherwise, trim trees or remove flowers to continue the vegetative growth and organic fertilizer schedule. Other considerations. Too much nitrogen promotes excessive stretching, which increases maintenance costs and time. With little benefit, the amount of growth does not outweigh the amount of extra material you may be able to harvest from your trees. Disposing of excess growth as chop and drop or mulching your moringa is an additional problem and expense. Application of too much soluble nitrogen causes environmental concerns, i.e., nitrogen leaching into water supplies or polluting surface waters such as lakes, rivers, bays, and retention ponds. Additionally, nitrogen is not used efficiently by moringa. Diseased or damaged roots, improper soil pH, waterlogged sites and plantings that are too deep can result in inefficient nutrient absorption and nutrient deficiency symptoms. Too much nitrogen can also contribute to disease development. It is one of the environmental stresses that can lead to increased disease or insect problems, which are often treated chemically without changing the cultural practices that initially caused the problem. In Chapter 5, cultural control practices are discussed to reduce susceptibility to pests. Fertilizer timing. Start with fertilizer in the soil when planting your moringa trees and seeds. Then fertilize for 4 to 6 weeks after sprouting. Most established moringa trees grow well with 2 or 3 fertilizer applications per year. One application is normally scheduled around February, South Florida, or March, North Florida, and another in September, North, or October, South. The third application can be made during the summer. Fall applications facilitate nutrient utilization during the cool months and are very important for growth flushes in the spring. Intensive annual beds that are actively growing moringa trees throughout the year or trees growing in pots need 3 to 6 applications of fertilizer per year, while mature plants in the ground need 2 to 3 feedings per year. If you plan to fertilize only twice per year, applications would be best in early spring and early fall. 3 applications per year would be best in early spring, early summer, and early fall, and 4 applications per year would be applied in late winter, late spring, summer, and fall. Be sure to avoid fertilizing during times when heavy rains are anticipated, including during a tropical storm or flood watches or warnings. Fertilizer recommendations for moringa in landscapes. When it has been determined that fertilization is necessary, most established moringa trees will benefit from fertilizing the landscape and other plants, and they should be fertilized at rates within ranges listed in Figure 410. The number of pounds of various nitrogen-containing fertilizers to apply per 1,000 square feet of bed area per year is presented in Figure 411. Phosphorus content of the fertilizer should be 0 to 2% P2O5. Historically, the ratio of nitrogen N to potassium K2O for landscape plants has been in the range of 1.1 to 2.1. A 15-0-15 is an example of a fertilizer utilizing the 1.1 ratio. Due to the prevalence of magnesium, Mg deficiency on some commercial and residential moringa operations in many parts of Florida, up to 2.5 pounds, Meng 1000 F to year, may be applied to address this problem. Micronutrients can be applied at specified rates and timing to achieve fertilization objectives. Water-soluble fertilizers should be applied at no more than 1 per 2 pound of actual nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per application. Application rates of controlled release fertilizers depend on the release rates of the product. Ground cover plantings and other areas where plants cover the entire surface area can be fertilized with 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 ft2 of surface area per application, 2 to 4 times per year. Areas that need to be FL1-ialized before planting, such as areas to be sodded, planted with ground covers, or bedding plants, planted with vegetables, or planted as a landscape, can be fertilized at a rate of 1.5 to 2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 ft2 of surface area. Special recommendations. Some recommendations are specific for certain regions and soil conditions for growing moringa trees that require a consistent pH for specific growth cycles at different times of the year. 3 examples are growing greens, flowers, and drumsticks. These recommendations vary from the generalized recommendations above. Fact sheets on moringa growth cycles and fertilization recommendations are available in Chapter 8, Moringa Management. Moringa Nutritional Disorders. Nitrogen. N deficiency is common in Florida moringa trees and typically the most limiting element in container production. However, other elements such as K, potassium, Mg, magnesium, and Mn, manganese, are much more prevalent and serious in the landscape. Symptoms of N deficiency include an overall light green color and decreased vigor of the moringa leaves. It is easily corrected by applying any N fertilizer to the soil. Leaf color quickly darkens in response to either soil or foliar fertilization. Potassium. Potassium deficiency is perhaps the most widespread and serious of all disorders in Florida moringa trees. Symptoms occur first on oldest leaves and progressively affect newer leaves as the deficiency becomes more severe. Symptoms vary among moringa species, but typically begin as translucent yellow or orange spots on the leaflets. These may or may not be accompanied by necrotic spots. As the symptoms progress, the leaflet or entire leaves will become withered or frizzled in appearance. The branches usually remain alive on K-deficient leaves, although it may be yellow in color instead of green in some species. Magnesium. Magnesium deficiency is also quite common in Florida moringa trees. Symptoms occur first on the oldest leaves and progress up through the canopy. They will be yellow in color and even brown spots with curling. Typical symptoms are a broad, light yellow band along the margin of the older leaves, with the center of the leaf remaining distinctively green. In severe cases, leaflet tips may become necrotic, but Mg deficiency is rarely if ever fatal to moringa trees. Instead, their growth can be severely stunted. Sulfur. Sulfur deficiency occasionally occurs in containers if sulfate fertilizers are not used. Symptoms are virtually identical to those of Phe deficiency and can only be correctly diagnosed by leaf nutrient analysis. Manganese. Manganese deficiency is common for moringa trees growing in the alkaline soils that cover much of South Florida. Symptoms occur only on new leaves which emerge chlorotic, weak, reduced in size, and with extensive necrotic streaking in the leaves. As the deficiency progresses, succeeding leaves will emerge completely withered, frizzled, or scorched in appearance and greatly reduced in size. Later, only necrotic petiole stubs will emerge, and death of the bud quickly follows. There will be lumpy bark forming on the tree trunks. Manganese deficiency is primarily caused by the element's insolubility in high pH situations. In some moringa trees, cold soil temperatures during the winter and spring months reduces root activity and thus the uptake of micronutrients, especially Mn. Moringa trees can be most severely deficient in Mn during the winter, and spring will usually grow out of the problem without special treatment once soil temperatures warm up in late spring. Iron. Iron deficiency is most common and usually appears on moringa trees growing in poorly aerated soils or those that have been planted too deeply. Waterlogged soils and deep planting effectively suffocate the roots. Symptoms appear first on the new leaves and in most cases will consist of uniformly chlorotic new leaves. As the deficiency progresses, new leaves will show extensive tip necrosis and reduced leaf size. Early symptoms in moringa trees include pea-sized green spots on otherwise new yellowish leaves. Diagnosis of nutrient deficiencies by visual symptoms alone can be difficult, since some of the symptoms overlap considerably. In most cases, the moringa leaf turns yellow. Correct diagnosis can be assured only if leaf nutrient analysis is performed on symptomatic moringa trees. Moringa fertilization schedule. Fertilizers should be applied 4 times per year for maximum growth, but on the more fertile soils, fewer applications may be adequate. Orchard style. Fertilization rates for orchard-style grown palms will vary with the soil type and spacing of the moringa trees, but on average with about a 10-15 spacing, we can calculate a general idea. Granular fertilizers are typically applied to the soil at rates starting at 1,2 to 1,0 for small recently planted moringa trees to 5 lob or more for larger and more established moringa trees spaced 10 oz or more apart. Foliar fertilization is a fairly common practice in moringa tree production. It is a rather inefficient method for providing macronutrient elements such as N, K, and Mg, but is very useful for supplying micronutrients such as Mn and Phe to the plants when soil conditions prevent adequate uptake of these elements by the roots. Foliar fertilization is best used as a supplement for a normal soil fertilization program, particularly for micronutrients, and can be performed in conjunction with regular fungicide applications. Liquid fertilization programs are not the most efficient delivery system for orchard style, especially when overhead irrigation is used. The soluble nature of liquid fertilizer results in leaching or runoff of a great deal of the nutrients before uptake by the roots. If drip irrigation is used in the field, injection of liquid fertilizer through the system may be cost-effective, and the problems inherent in overhead delivery may be minimized. Container growing. For containerized moringa trees, a fertilizer with a N-P2O5-K2O ratio of 3:1:2 is commonly used, but a 3:1:3 is preferable. An 18:6:12 or similar slow-release fertilizer is often incorporated into the container medium at planting time at a rate of 7 to 10 lb per cubic yard of soil. Add fertilizer in a large mix, then add to pots. Do not apply fertilizer directly to the pots if it can be avoided. Dibbling of slow-release fertilizers, as opposed to surface application, is recommended over surface application and even incorporation. The extra labor costs will be offset by the added longevity of the container soil and, consequently, better growth of the crop. Additionally, 1.5 to 3 pounds of a micronutrient amendment, rate depends on product, should also be incorporated per cubic yard of planting medium. Approximately 7 lbs of dolomite per cubic yard incorporated into the mix will adjust the pH of most media to 6 to 6.5 and provide calcium and magnesium, an ideal range to sprout and grow moringa trees in containers. If constant liquid fertilization programs are used instead, approximately 150 ppm of both N and K and 1:3 to 1:2 as much Mg will probably be adequate. Leaching should be performed once a month if the crop subjected to constant fertilization is not exposed to rainfall. When soil temperatures drop below 65 degrees F, fertilization rates should be reduced. Backyard growing. Mature moringa trees in the urban landscape should optimally receive a complete granular fertilizer formulated for tropical trees 4 times per year at a rate of 3 to 5 lb each application, dropping below a minimum of 2 applications, even for the most budget-conscious maintenance schedules, is not recommended. On new construction and fill soils, even 2 applications may not be enough. For moringa trees under 1-2 years of age or under 8T 1-2 lb should be adequate. Newly planted moringa trees can receive even less, 1-2 to 2 lb, dependent on size. Special tropical tree fertilizers contain additional Mg and a complete micronutrient amendment. N and K rates in the formulation should be equivalent, and all or at least some of both elements should be available in slow-release form. Fertilizers should be broadcast or banded under the canopy of the moringa tree, but should not be placed up against the trunk where newly emerging roots may be injured. Fertilizer application precautions. The following precautions and procedures need to be followed when applying fertilizers to ensure that no injury occurs to the moringa trees, other plants in the system, or the environment. Apply the right fertilizer. It is especially important to avoid fertilizers with pesticides or herbicides mixed in them. You want to be able to control weeds and grass using organic methods in the most efficient way possible without them. If you are using a weed and feed type of fertilizer for the grass areas, it may not be classified as organic. So be sure that it is applied only to the correct grass and that it does not get into the roots of shrubs and the moringa trees. If you are applying for USDA certified organic certification, you will want to check with them on what can and cannot be used in the grass areas and still maintain your certification because leaching could occur. Use the right application rate. Over-fertilization is a major cause of moringa tree stress and injury. Excess fertilizer also leaches and may cause water pollution. Be sure that the moringa trees being fertilized have adequate moisture. Moringa trees under water stress or wilted leaves can be severely injured by applying fertilizers to them. The first step before fertilizing is watering. Then, take another look at the trees and assess the amount of fertilizer that should be applied. Spread the fertilizer evenly according to the method of application. Broadcast fertilization should be evenly dispersed over the entire area. If fertilizer is injected into holes drilled into the soil, then the holes should be evenly spaced with the same amount of fertilizer applied in each hole. Individual plant fertilization should have the same amount for the same size moringa tree. Row fertilization and side dressing should be evenly distributed within the row. Avoid getting dry fertilizer on the leaves, green stems, and trunks of moringa trees. In situations where fertilizer does get on the leaves, remove as much as possible prior to watering. Watering after the fertilizer application will wash any fertilizer dust off the leaves and will begin to activate the fertilizer. Dry fertilizers should never be applied to wet plants. If you have applied a foliar application of liquid fertilizer, the plants should not be watered immediately after application. Always leave a ring of responsibility around or along the shoreways of canals, lakes, or waterways, except when adjacent to a protective seawall. This avoids fertilizing too close to a body of water. It is important to ensure that fertilizers and other chemicals do not come into direct contact with the water or with any structure bordering the water, such as a sidewalk, brick border, driveway, or street. More information is provided in Chapter 7, Moringa Management. Fertilizer spreader calibration. Most organic fertilizer applications are only effective if you ensure uniform coverage and maintain a schedule. Dry fertilizers can be applied with either a drop, gravity spreader, or a rotary centrifugal spreader. Before using organic fertilizers on your moringa trees, see what the requirements are for the other plants in your landscape. You may find that the low amount of fertilizer you are adding to your moringa trees for maintenance purposes can also be added evenly on other plants and grasses. A drop spreader has the advantage of applying an exact pattern since this is limited to the distance between the wheels. This also allows a tight pattern line to be cut, but requires that each pass meets exactly with the previous one, or skips will be noticeable. Wide, 6 feet drop spreaders can become cumbersome in the landscape by limiting access around your moringa trees, other plants, and getting through gates. The agitator in the bottom of the drop spreader's hopper also may break the coating of some slow-release fertilizers. The cyclone, also known as rotary or centrifugal spreader, generally has a wider pattern of distribution compared to a drop spreader, thus can cover a larger area in a short time. The application pattern of the cyclone spreader also gradually diminishes away from the machine, reducing the probability of an application skip. The uneven, wide pattern of the cyclone spreader is initially harder to calibrate, and heavier fertilizer particles tend to sling farther away from the machine. However, proper calibration and experience minimize these. A recent advancement in fertilizer spreader technology is the use of air to apply the material, like the cyclone spreader, that is somewhat exact, like the drop spreader, without damaging the granules or slinging heavier particles farther. Wind and rain effects also are reduced using the technology, but initial equipment expense and application expertise are higher. Spreader calibration involves measurement of the fertilizer output as the spreader is operated over a known area. One way to ensure uniform application of material is to divide the material into 2 equal portions. Use a spreader calibration which will deliver 1/2 the correct amount of material. Make an application over the entire area, turn the spreader direction 90 degrees from the initial application, and make a second application. This eliminates skips in the coverage. Accordingly, calibration of the spreader should be based on 1/2 desired application rates. A flat surface, a method of collecting the material, and a scale for weighing the material is needed for calibration. Chapter 4:6 Water and Irrigation. Do not overwater. Moringa like it. High and dry in tropical regions. Although moringa is drought tolerant, maintain healthy productive trees with a generous amount of water throughout their life cycle. Well-draining soils are key to watering consistently. Water is essential for the growth of everything, including moringa trees, even though we would like to believe they don't need much water. To maintain moringa trees in a commercial setting, however, they do need a substantial amount of watering. Thanks to water, moringa trees can regulate all their systems efficiently. Water is absorbed and used as a transport medium for sugars, minerals, and hormones within the moringa tree, and in the process of transpiration to help control its temperature. The main factors that influence the amount of water used by a moringa tree are species or variety of moringa, size, age, stage of growth, the local temperature, relative humidity, and wind. Some moringa trees require large amounts of water to maintain their high production value due to their location or relation to the sun. The lack of water will put the moringa trees under stress, causing yellow leaves and little to no seed production. The size of a moringa tree is also an important factor of water use because if the moringa tree doesn't need to be so large to produce the same or more amount of material, then keep the tree shorter and lower to the ground with regular pruning. A large moringa tree has a higher water use potential. Younger moringa trees and sprouts require more water in relation to size than older moringa trees, probably because of active growth in moringa is so fast. Temperature affects the rate of water use, both directly by affecting evaporation and transpiration, and indirectly by affecting other chemical processes. Warm temperatures tend to increase water loss, while cool temperatures decrease water loss. Relative humidity directly affects the rate of transpiration and evaporation. When relative humidity is high, The amount of moisture in the air and the moisture level at the leaf surface differs little. Therefore, water loss due to transpiration is decreased. With low relative humidity, transpiration increases, as does water use by the plant. Wind can also increase evaporation and transpiration. All these factors combine to determine the water use status of the moringa tree. Moringa trees can grow well in tropical regions. They can withstand the monsoon rains and the immense heat and humidity in the summer to an extent. They would much rather prefer a Mediterranean climate, still hot but slightly drier. Subtropical temperatures, never reaching freezing, would be the best climate for moringa. Not too much water, not too little. Water stress symptoms. Water stress symptoms can be observed in moringa trees by analyzing its leaves, and they are used to gauge when the tree needs water. One of the first symptoms of water stress is when soft leaves and stem tissue become limp or begin to wilt. This may occur as the day begins to heat up. You can see a visible change in the leaves. Then, during the hottest, driest part of the day, however, the leaf could be completely curled and drooping. Within another day or two, if the tree continues without water, the leaves may come back to life in some ways, but then the symptoms of wilting and drooping may be present most of the day. If the dry and hot weather continues without water, it may remain wilted throughout the entire day and night. In some cases, the foliage may begin to dry up, burn, and completely fall off. Moringa trees need to be watered as fast as possible when they begin to show water stress symptoms. The leaves are very sensitive, and the main part of the business is having green moringa leaves, not yellow or brown. If a moringa tree is not watered, wilting can be followed by yellowing and dropping of older leaves and browning of tips or margins. If water deprivation continues, the entire leaf may turn brown and die, which can lead to the eventual death of the moringa tree. Undetected symptoms may occur when a plant is getting only marginal amounts of water. Plant growth may slow down or stop due to water stress. However, the decreased growth may be blamed incorrectly on fertilization or pests. Water stress symptoms vary according to the individual moringa tree. Symptoms of excess water. Growers struggle with excess watering and is much more common than lack of water. Symptoms for overwatering often are like symptoms of not enough water. Under conditions of excess water, the soil lacks oxygen needed for root survival. As the root system deteriorates, the plant takes on less water. Often the decline of the root system is followed by invasion of root diseases. If moringa trees with adequate moisture in the soil show what appear to be water stress systems, the root system should be examined. Irrigation. Irrigate your moringa trees in the sprouting phase and in the mature phase. I like to say, only water when the soil is dry, don't water if the soil is wet. A good method for knowing when to water is to observe your moringa trees for stress symptoms. You can place indicator plants or ground covers nearby, which will show stress a day or two before the moringa, so that you are able to adjust the irrigation. Observe your moringa trees regularly and water whenever the indicator plants show stress symptoms. This requires keen observation to be sure that the indicator plants are, in fact, representative of the needs of the moringa trees. Keep in mind, irrigation will depend on if the moringa trees are in the ground or in containers. The size in which they are growing may differ in requirements as well. Small containers typically need water more frequently than large containers. Another method of determining the need for irrigation is to monitor the moisture level in the soil. First, by digging into it slightly and trying to clump the soil in a ball in your hand. If it holds together well, it has moisture retention with organic matter. But if your soil falls apart or does not hold together well like dry sand, use a reliable moisture meter. In greenhouses and in the field, irrigation systems should be designed to achieve optimal uniformity. Checking uniformity close to the pump and far away from the pump, and in each zone representing different irrigation infrastructures or delivery systems is recommended annually. Non-uniform systems may contribute to leaching and runoff, hence potential contamination of groundwater. Uniformity of water application with overhead sprinkler irrigation systems is often reported as distribution uniformity, DU. It is an indicator of how equal or unequal the application rates are in the nursery. Allowed DU below 60% indicates that application rates are very different, while a high DU, 80% or higher, indicates that application rates over the area are similar in value and that the water is distributed evenly to all the plants. Distribution uniformity is based on the low quarter of the irrigated area. The calculation of DU requires that the trash can test be performed in the irrigation zone. Figure 412 is an example of the trash can test. Figure 4 to 12. The distribution of catch cans between 4 sprinklers spaced in a square grid pattern. The number below each circle represents the depth of water caught in 1 hour at that location. In Figure 4 to 12, 16 straight-sided trash cans have been placed in the irrigation zone. The depth of water collected in these cans are after running the system for 1 hour is presented below each can. The average application rate in this zone is the average depth collected in the cans and is equal to 0.8 in HR. In order from top left to bottom right, U7 plus 0.8 plus 0.9 plus 0.6 plus 0.8 plus 0.7 plus 0.9 plus 0.7 plus 1.0 plus 0.8 plus 0.8 plus 0.9 plus 1.0 plus 0.8 plus 0.9 plus 1, 0, 16, 0.8 in HR. Now, to calculate distribution uniformity, the lowest 1/4 or quarter of the measurements from our example are selected. The other value we must know is the average depth of application during the test, which was calculated above. DU, average low quarter depth, overall average depth, x 100%, average low quarter depth, 0.6, 0.7 plus 0.7 plus 0.7, 4 or 0.7 in HR. DU 0.7, 0.8, 100%, shear 87.5%. Emission uniformity is used for micro-irrigation systems rather than distribution uniformity. It is calculated by comparing the volume of water from the emitters to the statistical differences in the total volume. An emission uniformity of 90% or higher is considered excellent. Additional information regarding irrigation frequency and amount is presented in Chapter 5, Water and Irrigation. Water quality. Chemicals, living organisms, and particulate matter affect water quality. Chemicals may injure plants, deposit undesirable residues on plants, or clog irrigation systems. Living organisms may also clog irrigation systems or spread plant diseases through irrigation water. Particulate matter may clog irrigation systems, especially low-volume drip-type systems. Water pH may adversely affect the pH of growing media and may cause problems with applications of chemicals for pest control or fertilization. Irrigation water should be tested for soluble salts and pH. Soil and water management practices may have to be changed based on the results. If water is high in soluble salts, fertilization procedures may have to be changed. If water is high in certain dissolved minerals, it may be necessary to avoid foliar application on some plants because of undesirable deposits on leaves, which spoil the appearance. Surface water has the potential to be contaminated with chemicals and disease-causing organisms. If it is necessary to use surface water, care must be taken to avoid contamination. Contamination problems include herbicides, algae, or other particulate matter which may clog automatic controllers and drip irrigation. Filtering can remove much of the particulate matter. Water that has been softened by a sodium ion replacement system should not be used for plant irrigation. Reclaimed water nutrient levels can vary by a factor of 10 or more, so be sure to contact the supplier to get information on nutrient content. When applying fertilizers to a site that irrigates with reclaimed water, consider the amount of nutrients in the water and reduce fertilization appropriately. In addition to possible nutrient pollution by over-irrigating, reclaimed water may contain high levels of chloride, leading to salt accumulations in the soil. Water requirements. Annual moringa types raised through seeds require frequent and regular irrigation compared to perennial or country types. In annual moringa types, the roots are highly succulent and fast spreading and draw more water from the subsoil region, hence it needs frequent and regular irrigation with an interval of 7 to 10 days, whereas the perennial moringa types are hardy and can be irrigated with an interval of 10-15 days interval based on the soil type during its vegetative growth respectively. Shorter period of 10 to 15 days water stress immediately after the pinching is very much useful for the development of a greater number of laterals in annual moringa. Soil moisture stress for the period of 20-30 days, depending upon the soil types, will be beneficial in flower induction of moringa. Soil moisture stress for limited period has a positive role on flower bud development by suppressing the excessive vegetative growth 28 days in moringa. However, the water stress is not advisable during the peak flowering and fruit setting stage. Moisture stress during this stage would be highly detrimental for moringa crops and results in flower drop, pollen dryness, immature fruit drop, and desiccation of immature fruits from tip to downwards. Hence, regular and frequent irrigation with 7 to 10 days interval, depending upon the soil type, is necessary to improve the fruit set and fruit development of moringa. Excess watering and water stagnation must be completely avoided during this stage, since that also leads to flower drop and immature fruit drop. During peak fruit development and maturation stage requires moderate irrigation, otherwise the fruits are highly succulent, less palatability, and poor post-harvest life. Complete stoppage of irrigation is recommended during the fruit maturation and fruit color changes into straw yellow for seed production purpose. During the severe drought and in hot summer period, the moringa tree can be sprayed with anti-transpirants like Green Miracle, PMA, Colin, etc. to safeguard against the trees from drought and to check the flower drop or fruit drop. Resources. Advances in Production Moringa Manual. Chapter 4.7, Light and Temperature. Light influences many aspects of the moringa tree's growth and development. It is required for photosynthesis, the sole process for sustaining life. Light level is a primary consideration when deciding where to plant your moringa trees in specific locations. Moringa trees in commercial settings require full sun to grow satisfactorily with as much material that is being removed from the trees each year. They will not grow with maximum production in partial sun or shade because the leaves will not produce as fast, and they will turn yellow more often, and they will be more susceptible to root rot if the irrigation is running in shady areas of your orchard or nursery. Reduce both irrigation and fertilization levels for moringa trees in the shade to avoid fungal growth and stress. Some moringa trees adapt to shady environments with larger leaves. The more sunlight there is, the smaller the leaves. Indoor leaves will be shed if the moringa tree is taken outside after winter. Allow the tree to regrow outdoor leaves once it's outside. If shade cannot be avoided, try to account for the sun lowering in the sky in the wintertime To make sun, the moringa tree will have maximum exposure to the sunlight in the winter. Even if you plant the tree in the summer in the shade, at least you know that when the sun is lower in the sky, it will receive sunlight, as shown in Figure 4.13. Figure 4.13 sundial showing sun lower in the sky in winter. Plant moringa trees on the northern side of the property if possible. In addition to light intensity levels, light duration also influences certain aspects of moringa tree growth patterns and development. Day length controls flowering in many species. The relationship of the length between day and night is known as photoperiod. A chemical in moringa trees, phytochrome, changes forms during light and darkness. This change signals to the moringa tree if days are short or long, thereby triggering flowering at the appropriate time. Moringa trees are long day and short day flowering plants. Flowering is initiated in moringa trees when the nights get longer and both shorter, spring and fall. These flowering times happen twice a year, where moringa trees can be covered in flowers. Depending on if you want your trees to initiate seed after pollination, you'll want to remove the flowers to keep your trees in a vegetative state. Once the flowers are pollinated and the tree begins its process of producing seed, it will lose its leaves and stop shooting growth. Instead, all energy will go into making seed. Low light disrupts the moringa tree's cycles because flowers will not be able to perceive the true day length, and they won't bloom properly. For moringa trees to survive successfully indoors, they must be near a window or have sun lamps and have plenty of circulation, fans, and water with well-draining soil. Field-grown moringa trees in pots are placed under shade cloth so that the tree roots don't burn in the pots. Although moringa grows in full sun in the ground, they need to be placed in partial sun or under shade cloth if grown in pots. The earth acts as a natural cooling method, and while moringa trees are grown in pots, the roots can get very hot. Moringa cannot withstand low light levels and must be moved to an area with higher lights. Conversely, sun scald occurs in moringa when grown indoors, then brought outside. The indoor leaves that are exposed to bright sunlight after being in an area with lower light levels will fall off and be replaced by outdoor leaves. This also happens when a moringa tree is pruned and the lower leaves are exposed to full sun. Temperature. Moringa trees have a temperature range at which they grow best, although some moringa trees can survive at much lower and somewhat higher extremes. Changes in temperature influence growth and development processes, such as photosynthesis and respiration. When temperatures go above or below the optimal range, growth slows and can eventually stop. Temperatures more extreme from the optimal range can result in death of the moringa tree. These are not absolute temperatures. Rather, they involve relationships between temperature and time. A moringa tree branch and its root system cannot withstand freezing temperatures for more than a few hours, but when exposed for 24 hours or more, it can lose all its leaves, and the trunks can die back all the way to the ground. The cadmium bark layer is so thin that the water inside the trunks can explode from freezing temperatures, causing anything to die that was above ground. It can regrow new trunks and branches if the root system survived. Figure 4.14 shows the optimal regions to grow moringa outdoors all year. Optimum temperature ranges for moringa trees are 65-85°F. The situation becomes very complex as one considers that the optimal temperatures for one species of moringa trees, not only with many cultivars, but also varying temperature requirements at different stages of development. The tissue involved, the length of exposure, and environmental factors such as radiation received from the sun and water stress. With moringa trees, the daytime optimum temperature is higher than the optimum temperature at night. Fig 4.14 green indicates optimal temperature zones to grow moringa in USA. Moringa trees grow more in the summer months than in the winter months. In Florida, once the rainy season begins, moringa trees can grow up to a foot a week. Moringa trees will slow down or stop growing in the winter simply because the temperatures have exceeded their optimal temperature range. This phenomenon is called cold stall. As temperatures increase, the moringa trees will resume growth. Fig 4:15. Green indicates optimal temperature zones to grow moringa in the world. Minimal winter temperatures also determine the northern and southern limits of moringa trees, the former in terms of hardiness to cold, winter survival, and the latter in terms of chilling requirements needed to break dormancy so growth and reproduction can resume. The length of high summer temperature periods also influences the moringa tree's ability to adapt to a region. Both factors influence the natural distribution of moringa trees globally. Moringa can grow more successfully outside of these green zones as a short, bushy annual that will die in the winter. Harvest in the summer for biomass and green material. Moringa trees outside of this zone may never reach maturity or go to seed unless grown indoors or in a greenhouse.